The steel rail was cold against Ava Sullivan's spine. 27 years old, 5'3", 115 pounds soaking wet. Her wrists burned where the paracord cut into skin. Military-grade rope, 550 pounds tensile strength, the kind that doesn't break, the kind designed to hold. Above her, the Montana night stretched infinite and black. Stars wheeled across the void like scattered diamonds. Beautiful, peaceful. The last thing she'd see if this went wrong. 38 minutes until the freight train arrived. 38 minutes to live. She didn't scream, didn't beg. Seals don't beg. Her father taught her that. Instead, Ava Sullivan began counting backward from 100. Each number a breath, each breath a heartbeat. By the time she reached 0, she'd either be free or she'd be dead. 100, 99, 98. 800 meters north on the roof of an abandoned warehouse, a man lay perfectly still. John McCarthy. 64 years old, silver hair cropped military short, face carved from granite in bad decisions. His left leg ended 6 inches below the knee. Titanium and carbon fiber had replaced what Afghanistan took in 2004. But his eyes were still sharp, and his hands didn't shake. The Remington 700 rifle cradled in those hands was older than Ava Sullivan. 40 years of service, 127 confirmed kills across Panama, the Gulf, Somalia. The barrel had been relined twice, the stock refinished, but the soul of the weapon remained unchanged. A widowmaker, patient, lethal, true. McCarthy pressed his eye to the thermal scope. The world became gradients of heat. Ava's body glowed white-hot against the cold steel rail. 800 meters, an easy shot in daylight. Harder at night, manageable. He'd made worse shots with worse odds. His finger rested alongside the trigger guard. Not on the trigger, not yet. That came later, if it came at all. The radio clicked. Static hiss, then her voice. Uncle John. Steady, controlled. Her father's daughter. I can handle this. Don't interfere. McCarthy studied the scene through the scope. 3 figures stood 200 meters from the rail line, watching, waiting, wanting to see her die. Lieutenant Commander Brett Hawkins, Lieutenant Marcus Kane, Lieutenant Ryan Mitchell, all Navy, all sworn to protect and serve, all willing to watch a woman dying alone in the dark. You got 30 minutes, Ghost, McCarthy said into the radio, his voice like gravel in a bucket. After that, I make the call. Copy. One word, but he heard everything underneath it. Fear, determination, the same iron will that lived in her father's chest before a sniper's bullet ended David Sullivan in Fallujah 2004. 20 years ago, 20 years of questions, 20 years of official lies and classified files and sealed reports, 20 years of Ava Sullivan growing up without knowing the truth. Her father didn't die in combat, he was murdered. And the men who killed him were still out there, still breathing, still serving, still pretending to be heroes. McCarthy's jaw tightened. Not for long, 72 hours earlier. San Diego burned under an indifferent sun. Ava Sullivan sat in her cubicle at Naval Special Warfare Command and pretended to care about the intelligence report on her screen. Satellite imagery from Kandahar, convoy routes, threat assessments. The same information recycled through different formats for different commanders who'd skim it and forget it and ask for another report next week. She was good at her job. Analyst second class, top marks in her training pipeline, commendations from 3 different COs. On paper, she was exactly what the Navy wanted. On paper. In reality, Ava Sullivan was a woman in a man's world. 5'3" in a land of giants. Quiet in a culture that valued volume. Thoughtful in an organization that rewarded aggression. They called her princess when they thought she couldn't hear. They called her worse when they knew she could. Hey, Sullivan, the voice came from behind her. Lieutenant Commander Brett Hawkins, 35 years old, 6'2", shoulders like a linebacker, smile like a shark. Got a minute. She didn't turn around. I'm busy. Doing what? Painting your nails. Laughter from the cubicles nearby. Kane and Mitchell. Hawkins' perpetual shadows. The terrible trio. They moved through the command like a pack of wolves, young, aggressive, untouchable. Ava saved her work. closed the file, turned to face them. Hawkins leaned against her cubicle wall, arms crossed, entirely too comfortable in her space. Invasion as interrogation technique. "We need the comms report from last month's op," he said, "the one you were supposed to finish last week." "It's done. I sent it to Commander Williams on Friday." Williams didn't get it. "Then Williams needs to check his email." Hawkins' smile didn't waver, but something shifted behind his eyes, a flicker of annoyance quickly masked. "You know what your problem is, Sullivan? You think you're special. Think being David Sullivan's daughter makes you SEAL material." The cubicles went quiet. Ava stood slowly, drew herself to her full 5'3", looked up at this man who had 40 pounds and 8 inches on her, who had rank and authority and the full weight of institutional inertia behind him. "My father," she said quietly, "died serving this country while you were still in high school. So yes, Commander, I think that makes his legacy worth something, even if you don't." Hawkins's smile turned to stone. "Your father," he said, leaning down until his face was inches from hers, "died because he wasn't good enough. Because when it mattered, when the bullets started flying, he choked. That's the real legacy, Princess. Cowardice wrapped in a flag." The words hit like fists. Ava's hands balled at her sides. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed to swing, to fight, to make him hurt the way those words hurt. But SEALs don't lose control. Her father taught her that too. "Get out of my cubicle," she said. Hawkins straightened, adjusted his uniform. The smile returned. "Finish the report, Sullivan. Commander Williams wants it by EOD." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and stay away from old files. Some doors should stay closed." Then he was gone. Kane and Mitchell trailing behind like remoras, following a shark. Ava sat back down. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, from rage. The kind of rage that burns cold and patient. The kind that waits. Because 6 months ago, Ava Sullivan had started digging. She'd hacked into the Naval Medical Database. Technically illegal, definitely career-ending if caught, but necessary. Because 20 years of official explanations never quite added up. Her father's death certificate said, KIA, enemy action, rocket-propelled grenade. The autopsy report told a different story. Entry wound, posterior left shoulder. Exit wound, anterior right chest. Projectile 5.56 millimeter NATO standard. Not an RPG, not enemy fire. A bullet. An American bullet, fired from an American rifle. From behind. David Sullivan wasn't killed by the enemy. He was shot in the back by someone in his own unit. Ava had spent 6 months cross-referencing personnel files, building timelines, mapping relationships. 5 men had been in David Sullivan's unit that day in Fallujah. 2 were dead legitimate combat deaths confirmed by multiple sources. 1 had been medically discharged with traumatic brain injury, currently in a nursing home in Ohio, barely able to remember his own name. That left 2. Marcus Kane had been a young petty officer then, now a lieutenant, career on track, no disciplinary issues. Nothing remarkable except an uncanny ability to be elsewhere when investigations started. And Brett Hawkins, 24 years old in 2004, an ensign fresh out of the academy, now a fast-rising star in naval intelligence. Son of someone important, his personnel file was curiously vague about family connections. But that comment, stay away from old files. He knew, somehow Hawkins knew she'd been digging, which meant she was getting close, which meant she was in danger. Ava pulled out her phone, scrolled through her contacts, found a number she'd saved 20 years ago but never called. A number her father had made her memorize when she was 7 years old. If anything happens to me, David Sullivan had told his daughter, you call this man, his name is John McCarthy, he'll keep you safe. Her finger hovered over the call button. Not yet, not until she had proof. Real proof. Something even the Navy couldn't ignore or classify or bury in a vault somewhere. She needed one more piece. Ava minimized her legitimate work. Pulled up a hidden partition on her hard drive. 6 months of research lived there. Personnel files, medical reports, mission logs, communications transcripts. All stolen, all illegal, all true. Somewhere in this digital haystack was a needle, a connection, a name. Her father's last recorded communication before he died had been a radio call. 4 words captured by the unit recorder, preserved in the mission archive. Found him, Crimson Ghost. Crimson Ghost. She'd spent months trying to identify that call sign. It didn't appear in any official roster, any squadron designation, any classified operation she could access. But it appeared in her father's private notes. Entries going back months before his death. Observations, suspicions, a pattern of intelligence leaks, operations compromised, SEALs dying in ambushes that felt too perfect, too planned. Someone was selling secrets, someone inside the teams. Her father had been hunting a traitor, and the traitor had killed him for it. Ava's screen flickered, then went black. She hit the keyboard. Nothing. The hard drive light was dead. No power, no response. No, 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 no. She yanked the power cable, plugged it back in, pressed the power button. The computer remained dark, dead. Someone had bricked her machine remotely. Her 6 months of research, gone. Unless Ava pulled a USB drive from her pocket. Plain, unmarked. The backup she'd made last night. Paranoia had seemed excessive at the time. Now it looked like survival instinct. She pocketed the drive, grabbed her jacket, walked toward the exit with measured calm. Don't run, don't look guilty. Just another analyst leaving for lunch. The parking lot stretched empty and bright under the California sun. Her car sat 3 rows back, a 10-year-old Honda Civic with 200,000 miles and a prayer. She was 20 feet away when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. You should have stayed away from old files, Princess. Some lessons require teaching. Ava's heart stopped. She looked up, scanned the parking lot. Empty. No movement. No watchers. But someone was watching. Always watching. Her phone buzzed again. This time a photo. Her apartment building. Taken from across the street. Timestamped 16 minutes ago while she was inside. While they were inside. Ava ran for her car. Forget measured calm. Forget operational security. Keys out. Door open. Engine screaming to life. She floored it out of the parking lot, tires squealing on asphalt. In her rearview mirror, a black SUV pulled out 3 cars back. Followed. Professional distance. Professional technique. They weren't hiding anymore. The message was clear. We know where you work. We know where you live. We can reach you anywhere. Ava's hands tightened on the wheel. Her father's voice echoed in her head. If you're compromised, Ghost, you run to ground. You find defensible space. You call for backup. She had defensible space, a storage unit in the industrial district, paid for in cash under a fake name, stocked with everything she'd need if this day came, because she'd known this day would come. She just thought she'd have more time. The Honda screamed through San Diego traffic, running lights, weaving lanes. The SUV kept pace, patient, inevitable. Her phone sat in the cup holder. One call. That's all it would take. One call to the number her father made her memorize. But that felt like surrender, felt like admitting she couldn't handle this alone, that she needed saving. Her father had been a SEAL. Her grandfather had been UDT, the underwater demolition teams that came before the SEALs. 3 generations of warriors. 3 generations of men who ran toward danger while others fled. But she wasn't a man. The Navy made that very clear. Women couldn't be SEALs. Women couldn't do what men did. Women needed protection. Except her father hadn't raised her to need protection. He'd raised her to be the protection. Every summer from age 8 to 18, he'd taken her to Montana, to the cabin his father built in the mountains. And there, away from prying eyes and Navy regulations, he'd taught her everything a SEAL needed to know. How to shoot, how to track, how to navigate by stars, how to survive on nothing, how to kill. The Navy won't let you wear the Trident Ghost, he'd told her, using the call sign he'd given her when she made her first 500-meter shot at age 12. But I can make sure you've got the skills. The rest is up to you. She'd asked him once why he called her Ghost. Because you're small, he'd said, and quiet and deadly. You'll slip past their defenses, and they'll never see you coming. The Honda screeched into the industrial district, abandoned warehouses, empty lots. The kind of place where screams went unheard and bodies went unfound. Perfect. Ava killed her headlights, turned hard into an access road. The Honda's suspension screamed. She didn't care. 3 more turns. 2, 1. There. The storage facility, chain link fence, rusted gate, no security cameras because this was the kind of place that didn't want witnesses. She punched the code. The gate groaned open, wide enough for the Honda. She slid through, killed the engine, waited. The black SUV prowled past, slowed, searching, then moved on. Gone. For now. Ava climbed out of the car. Her legs felt like water. Adrenaline crash. She'd been running on fear and rage for the past 20 minutes. Now that she'd stopped, her body wanted to collapse. No time for collapse. SEALs don't collapse. She pulled her phone out, stared at the number she'd never called. The number that represented the last connection to her father's world. John McCarthy, retired 15 years, living somewhere in Montana. The man her father trusted more than anyone. The man who'd saved his life 7 times in combat before someone took it an 8th time. Ava pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maybe he'd changed numbers. Maybe he was dead. Maybe, yeah. Gravel voice. Suspicious. Tired. Is this John McCarthy? Silence. Then, who's asking? My name is Ava Sullivan. I'm David Sullivan's daughter. The silence stretched longer. She could hear breathing. Could almost feel him thinking through the phone. Ava. His voice changed, softer, stunned. The little girl from the funeral, 6 years old. Pigtails. Didn't cry. I'm 27 now. Time flies. Pause. Why are you calling? Because they just tried to kill me. Her voice cracked on the last word. Damn it. The same people who killed my father. They know I've been digging. They're coming for me. Where are you? San Diego Industrial District, storage facility. Secure. For now. Stay there, command voice. The voice that sent men into battle and brought them home. Don't trust anyone. Don't use credit cards. Don't go home. 72 hours. I'll be there. That's too long. 72 hours. You can survive 3 days, Ava. Your father made sure of that. The line went dead. Ava stood in the gathering dark. Her car ticked as the engine cooled. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. The usual symphony of a city that never quite slept. 3 days. She could last 3 days. She pulled the USB drive from her pocket. 6 months of work. 6 months of proof. Everything she needed to burn Brett Hawkins and whoever else was involved. But proof didn't matter if you were dead. The sun dipped below the horizon. The industrial district transformed. Shadows grew teeth. Every sound became a threat. Ava retreated into the storage unit, locked the door, checked the windows, high, narrow, barred. Defensible. Good enough. The unit contained everything she'd cached over the past 6 months. Water, MREs, medical supplies, a sleeping bag, and weapons. A Glock 19 9mm, 15-round magazine, 2 spare mags, and her father's rifle. The AR-15 he'd taught her on, the one he'd left her in his will. For my daughter, the will had read, who is braver than she knows. Ava field-stripped the Glock, checked the action, loaded a magazine, chambered a round, safety on. The ritual calmed her. Familiar, mechanical. Her father had made her do this 1,000 times, until it became muscle memory, until the weapon was an extension of her hand. A gun is a tool, Ghost, he'd said. Like a hammer, like a wrench. You don't fear it, you respect it, you maintain it, you use it when needed. Nothing more, nothing less. She set the Glock on the sleeping bag beside her, within reach but not touching. Then she pulled out her laptop, a backup machine clean uncompromised, and inserted the USB drive. The files loaded, personnel records, medical reports, communications logs, everything she'd stolen, everything she wasn't supposed to see. And they're buried in a communications transcript from 3 weeks before her father's death. She found it. A radio intercept. Encrypted. But encryption didn't mean secure. Not anymore. Some analyst had flagged it as suspicious. Routed it through channels. buried it in an archive where it had lived forgotten for 20 years, until Ava found it. The transcript was short. Two voices, one tagged as unknown male 1, the other unknown male 2. Unknown male 1, the seal is getting close. Unknown male 2, how close? Unknown male 1. He knows about the leaks, suspect's internal compromise. Unknown male 2 names, unknown male 1, not yet, but he's narrowing the field. We need to act. Unknown male 2, approved, make it look like enemy action. No complications. Unknown male 1, understood, Crimson Ghost out. There it was, Crimson Ghost. Not a call sign, a code name. Someone operating inside the special operations community. Someone leaking intelligence. Someone who'd been compromised by David Sullivan's investigation. Someone who'd ordered his death. Ava read the transcript 3 more times, memorizing, analyzing. The language was careful, professional, military but not tactical. This wasn't a field operator. This was someone with authority, someone who gave orders and expected obedience, someone high up the chain. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her blood went cold. But the message wasn't a threat. You have 72 hours. Use them wisely. They're watching the airports, the train stations, the bus terminals. You want to disappear. You disappear the old end. Cash, stolen cars, small towns. Your father taught you how. Remember. J.M. John McCarthy. The tension in Ava's shoulders eased slightly. She wasn't alone. Not completely. Help was coming. All she had to do was survive 3 days. She killed the laptop, wrapped herself in the sleeping bag. The Glock stayed within reach. Sleep came in fragments. Shallow. Restless. Every sound jerking her awake. Every shadow a potential threat. At 0300, her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't McCarthy. The message was simple. Direct, 6 words that turned her blood to ice. See you at the tracks, princess. Attached was a photo, taken with a telephoto lens, through the barred window of the storage unit, Ava asleep, vulnerable, unaware. They knew where she was. They'd been watching all along. The message continued. 0200 tomorrow, old rail yard off Harbor Drive. Come alone. Come unarmed. We'll talk. Last chance, Sullivan. Take it or die running. Ava stared at the screen. Every instinct screamed trap. Ambush, murder dressed up as negotiation. But what choice did she have? Run and they'd hunt her. Hide and they'd find her. The city belonged to them. The Navy belonged to them. She was one woman with a stolen USB drive and a dead father's rifle. Not enough. Unless. Her fingers moved across the phone, typing, deleting, typing again. Finally settling on I'll be there. No bravado, no defiance. Just acceptance. The response came immediately. Smart girl. Ava set the phone down, checked her watch. 23 hours until the meeting. 23 hours to prepare, to plan, to survive. She pulled up McCarthy's number, started typing, stopped. If they were monitoring her phone, and they probably were, then any message to McCarthy would compromise him too. No, he'd said 72 hours. That gave him time to arrive, time to prepare, time to set up his own surveillance. If she was walking into a trap, at least she wouldn't be walking in alone. Not completely. The hours crawled. Ava cleaned her weapons, packed her gear, ate an MRE that tasted like cardboard and regret. When dawn broke, she slipped out of the storage unit, left the Honda too recognizable now, walked 3 blocks to a convenience store, paid cash for a burner phone, called McCarthy from a payphone outside a gas station. He answered on the first ring. Talk. They made contact. Want to meet? Tonight. 0200. Old rail yard. You're not going. I am. Ava. It's my fight, Mr. McCarthy. Silence. Then, your father used to say that right before he did something monumentally stupid. You sound just like him. Is that a compliment? No. Pause. What do you need, Overwatch? 800 meters. High ground. If things go wrong, I need someone who can shoot. I'm 64 years old with 1.5 legs. But you can still shoot. Another pause. Longer. Yeah, I can still shoot. Then I'll see you tonight. Ava. One question. Yes. You ready to kill? The question hung between them. Heavy, irrevocable. Ava thought about her father, about 20 years of lies, about three men who thought they could terrorize her into silence. Yes, she said. I'm ready. Good. Because tonight, Ghost, you're going to find out what your father already knew. Being ready and being able are two different things. Hope you've got what it takes. The line went dead. Ava stood in the California sun. The burner phone felt heavy in her hand. Tonight she'd face the men who killed her father. Tonight she'd learn if the training stuck, if the skills remained, if she was truly her father's daughter, or if she was just a woman playing soldier, about to die for her arrogance. The day passed in a blur. Surveillance detection routes through San Diego, stopping, doubling back, watching for tails. She spotted two, lost them both in the labyrinth of Balboa Park. By sunset, she was clean. By midnight, she was ready. The old rail yard sprawled across 10 acres of rust and rot. Abandoned freight cars sat on dead tracks. Weeds grew through cracked concrete. The city had plans to redevelop this area, turn it into condos or restaurants or whatever the wealthy needed this year. But for now, it belonged to the rats and the homeless and the people who needed privacy. Do terrible things. Ava arrived at 1:45, 15 minutes early. Time to scout, time to prepare. She'd left the Glock behind, they'd search her for weapons. But she'd kept something small, a ceramic knife, 3 inches, razor sharp, hidden in her boot, just in case the negotiation turned to violence. The meeting point was obvious, a section of rail line that still looked maintained, clear of debris, accessible from the road. Easy escape routes, or easy kill zone, depended on your perspective. At 0155, headlights pierced the dark. A truck, Ford F-150, black. Lifted suspension, it parked 50 meters away, doors open. 3 men climbed out. Hawkins, Kane, Mitchell, the terrible trio, come to finish what they started. Ava stepped into the open, hands visible, unthreatening. The picture of compliance. Hawkins smiled. Smart decision, Princess. Thought we'd have to drag you here. You wanted to talk. I'm here. We don't want to talk. Kane this time, circling left, professional, military. We want to make sure you understand the situation. I understand perfectly. My father found evidence of a traitor, Crimson Ghost, and you killed him for it. The 3 men exchanged glances. Then Hawkins laughed. That what you think that we're Crimson Ghost? You're working for him, cleaning up loose ends. Wrong, Mitchell now, circling right, pincer movement, boxing her in. We're just soldiers following orders. Your father stuck his nose where it didn't belong, asked questions, made accusations, made people nervous. People, Ava's voice stayed level. Good mom. What people? The kind you don't say no to. Hawkins stepped closer. The kind who've been protecting this community for 40 years. The kind who don't appreciate little girls playing detective. My father was murdered. Your father was eliminated. Big difference. Hawkins pulled a length of paracord from his pocket. Military rope, standard issue. And now you're going to disappear too. Tragic accident. Stupid civilian wandering around a dangerous area at night. Happens all the time. You're going to kill me. Eventually, but first we're going to teach you a lesson about consequences. They moved fast. Professional. Kane grabbed her left arm, Mitchell her right. Hawkins produced a roll of tape. They dragged her toward the active rail line, the section that still saw freight trains, the section where a body would be obliterated beyond recognition. Ava fought, twisted, tried to break free. But 3 men against 1 woman was math that didn't work out well. They forced her down. Mitchell held her legs. Kane stretched her arms. Hawkins wrapped paracord around her wrists. Professional knots. Escape resistant. Then they tied her to the rail itself. Spread eagle. Helpless. A sacrifice to the gods of steel and momentum. Hawkins knelt beside her. The O200 freight runs this line every night. You've got about 38 minutes. If you can get free, you are welcome to leave. If not, he shrugged. Well, accidents happen. Why? Ava's voice cracked. Why not just shoot me? Because we need it to look accidental. Because people are watching. Because Brett Hawkins Jr. doesn't make messes. He leaned closer. But my father does. He's very good at making problems disappear. Been doing it for 40 years. Your father was just one more problem, and now you are too. Your father, Hawkins smiled. I guess you didn't dig deep enough, Princess. My full name is Brett Kellerman Hawkins. Ring any bells? Kellerman. Ava's mind raced. Kellerman. Where had she seen that name? Still don't know. Hawkins stood. Vice Admiral Robert Kellerman, Deputy Commander of Naval Special Warfare, the man who signs your paychecks, the man who controls your career, the man who's been selling secrets since the Cold War. Crimson Ghost. Crimson Ghost. Hawkins nodded. And when you started digging into your father's death, when you started pulling threads, my father noticed. Sent me to keep an eye on you. Make sure you didn't find anything important. But you just kept digging, kept pulling. So now we clean up. Permanently. He turned to leave. Kane and Mitchell followed. Wait! Ava's voice echoed across the rail yard. He's your father. You're going to be an accessory to murder. They'll find out. They won't. Hawkins looked back. Because my father is very careful, very thorough, very protected. Good luck, Princess. Hope you're as tough as your father. Then they were gone, engine starting, headlights sweeping away, darkness reclaiming the rail yard. Ava lay on the cold steel and began counting backward from 100. 800 meters away, John McCarthy watched through a thermal scope and wondered if Ava Sullivan was as good as her father claimed. Or if he'd just watched her die. His finger rested alongside the trigger guard. Waiting, 97. The paracord bit into Ava's wrists. 550 pounds tensile strength, designed to hold a man suspended from a cliff face in full combat gear. More than enough to hold one small woman against cold steel. 96. Her father's voice echoed in her head. Montana. Summer. She was 12 years old, and he'd tied her hands with the same kind of rope. Panic is what kills you, Ghost. Not the rope, not the situation. Your own fear. So you don't panic. You count. You breathe. You think. 95. Think. The rail beneath her back was old, rusted. The kind of rust that came from decades of weather and neglect. Rust meant texture. Texture meant friction. Friction could cut rope, maybe. 94. Ava arched her back, pressed her bound wrists against the rail edge. The metal was sharp where corrosion had eaten through the protective coating. She began to saw. Small movements. Steady. The rope was tough, but not indestructible. Nothing was indestructible given enough time and pressure. The question was whether she had enough time. 93. In the darkness above stars wheeled silent witness, indifferent to one woman's struggle. The universe didn't care if Ava Sullivan lived or died. The universe had watched billions die and would watch billions more. One more body on the scales wouldn't tip the balance, but it would tip her balance, her father's balance. 3 generations of warriors didn't end on a railroad track in San Diego. 92. The rope began to fray, microscopic at first, individual fibers separating under constant friction. The inner strands still held strong, but the outer sheath was weakening. Keep going. Her wrists burned. Blood made the rope slippery, made the friction less effective. She adjusted her angle, found a sharper edge on the rail. The pain was irrelevant. Pain was just nerve endings screaming. Nerve endings lied. Seals ignored pain. 91. 800 meters north, John McCarthy lay motionless on the warehouse roof. The Remington 700 was an old friend. Comfortable. Predictable. He knew this weapon's quirks better than he knew his own body. Knew it would shoot 2 inches high at 600 meters if the temperature dropped below 50 degrees. Knew the trigger broke at exactly 3.5 pounds. Knew the barrel heated up after 5 rounds and started throwing shots wide. 40 years of intimate knowledge. He could kill Brett Hawkins right now. Center mass, the man was still visible through the thermal scope, standing by his truck 200 meters from Ava, watching, making sure his victim couldn't escape. One shot. Problem solved. But McCarthy didn't take the shot. because Ava had said don't interfere, because she needed to do this herself, because her father had spent 10 years training her for exactly this situation, and McCarthy owed it to David Sullivan to let his daughter prove herself, even if it killed her. His finger stayed alongside the trigger guard, waiting. 37 minutes until the freight train arrived. Ava had 30 minutes. After that, McCarthy would make the call. 90. The rope was halfway cut. Ava could feel the difference. The binding was looser, not loose enough to slip free, but loose enough to give her hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you careless, made you rush. She forced herself to maintain rhythm, steady sawing motion, up and down. The rust flaked away under her wrists, mixed with blood, created a pace that was somehow both lubricant and abrasive. Her shoulders screamed. The position was unnatural. Arms stretched above her head, back arched. Muscles burning with lactic acid buildup, ignore it. SEALs trained in stress positions. Her father had made her hold stress positions until she cried, then made her hold them longer, until crying became irrelevant, until discomfort was just another background condition. 89. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew. Not the freight train, not yet, just a passenger line moving through the city. Normal people going normal places, living normal lives where nobody tied them to railroad tracks. Ava wondered what normal felt like. She couldn't remember. 88. The rope gave, not completely, but enough that she could feel the strands separating. A few more minutes, that's all she needed. A few more minutes of friction and pressure and controlled violence. Then she'd be free. Then she'd disappear into the city. Then she'd find John McCarthy, and together they'd burn Brett Hawkins and his father to ash. But first she had to survive the next few minutes. 87. McCarthy's radio clicked. Static hiss. Then her voice, strained but controlled. Uncle John, status check. He keyed the mic. Still watching. You got 28 minutes. Copy. I'm almost through. Good. When you're free, head northwest. There's a drainage culvert 300 meters from your position, marked with orange spray paint. Wait there. I'll come to you. What if they're still watching? They are watching. Hawkins hasn't left. He's standing by his truck. Wants to make sure you don't slip the trap. Silence on the radio. Then, can you take the shot? McCarthy considered. 800 meters, clear line of sight, minimal wind, temperature stable, target stationary, an easy shot by his standards. Yes. Then why haven't you? Because you asked me not to interfere. More silence. He could almost hear her thinking, calculating, weighing options against outcomes. New plan, Ava said. When I'm free, I'm going after Hawkins. Negative. You're unarmed and he's got 2 shooters with him. I have a knife. A knife against 3 men with guns is suicide, math ghost. Maybe, but if we let him go, he reports to his father. Kellerman disappears. We lose our chance. McCarthy's jaw tightened. She was right. Tactically sound. But tactics didn't account for the fact that he'd promised David Sullivan he'd keep his daughter safe. Promised at the funeral 20 years ago. A whispered vow over a closed casket. I'll watch you, he said quietly. But the second it goes sideways, I'm taking control. Understood, understood. The radio went silent. McCarthy adjusted his scope, centered the reticle on Brett Hawkins' chest, just in case. Just in case Ava Sullivan wasn't as good as her father believed. Just in case this became a killing night. 86. The paracord snapped. Ava's hands came free so suddenly she almost didn't realize it. The rope fell away. Her arms dropped. Blood rushed back into oxygen-starved muscles. The pain was exquisite, blinding. She bit down on a scream. No time for pain. She sat up, grabbed the rope binding her ankles. The knots were professional, secure. But knots had weaknesses. Every knot had a load-bearing strand. Find that strand, release the tension, and the whole thing collapsed. Her father had made her tie and untie knots until her fingers bled, until she could do it blindfolded, until the architecture of rope and tension was as familiar as breathing. 15 seconds. The ankle bindings fell away. Ava stood. Her legs were rubber, circulation cut off too long. She stumbled, caught herself on the rail, forced blood to move, forced muscles to respond. Move, move, move. 26 minutes until the freight train. But she wasn't running, not yet. Ava pulled the ceramic knife from her boot, 3 inches of razor-edged darkness. Then she began moving toward the truck. Low, quiet, using the abandoned freight cars for cover. Ghost was more than a call sign. It was a methodology. Her father had taught her that too. 200 meters became 150. 150 became 100. She could see them now. 3 shapes in the darkness. Hawkins leaned against the truck, smoking a cigarette. Kane and Mitchell sat on the tailgate, relaxed, confident. Why wouldn't they be? Their victim was tied to a railroad track with a train incoming. Job done. Mission accomplished. All that remained was waiting for the physics of steel on steel to complete what they started. 75 meters. McCarthy watched through his scope, watched Ava Sullivan move like liquid shadow through the rail yard. Small, silent, deadly. Everything her father had promised. But 3 men with guns against 1 woman with a knife was still bad math. His finger moved from alongside the trigger guard to the trigger itself. Not pressing, not yet, just ready, just in case. 50 meters. Ava's heart hammered against her ribs. This was different from target shooting in Montana. Different from practicing knife work on training dummies. This was real. These men would kill her if they saw her coming. Would kill her without hesitation or remorse. She had to move first. Had to move fast. Had to be her father's daughter. 25 meters. She could hear their voices now. Low conversation. Mitchell was telling a story about a bar fight in Tijuana. Kane was laughing. Hawkins was checking his watch. Another 20 minutes, and he said, then we can go. You really think she's still tied up? Kane asked. Where's she gonna go? Rope's military grade. She's 115 pounds. Math doesn't work out in her favor. Unless she's got help. Hawkins shrugged. We've been watching for tails all week. She's alone. Her old man's dead. Her mother moved to Florida 10 years ago and they don't talk. No siblings, no close friends. She's got nobody. What about the old man McCarthy? Lives in Montana. Even if she called him, he's not getting here in time. And he's 64 with 1 leg. Not exactly tactical anymore. The 3 men laughed. 10 meters. Ava moved behind a rusted freight container. Shadows pooled thick here. Perfect concealment. She could see them clearly now. Kane sat closest. Back to her. Sidearm visible on his hip. A Sig Sauer P-20 Swiss, standard Navy issue. Mitchell sat facing her direction, but wasn't paying attention. Eyes on his phone. Scrolling through something. Social media probably. Updating his status while waiting for a woman to die. Hawkins stood apart. Alert. Command presence. The leader. The planner. The one who needed to die first. But first wasn't possible. Geography dictated target priority. Kane was closest, Mitchell second, Hawkins third. She'd have to work backward. Ava took 3 deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Her father's voice, before you go loud, Ghost, you go quiet. Quiet your mind, quiet your heart, quiet your fear. Then you move. She moved, 5 running steps, silent on rubber soles. Kane never heard her coming, never saw the blade. She grabbed his hair with her left hand, yanked his head back. The ceramic knife crossed his throat in one smooth motion. Not deep, not lethal, just enough to make him scream and bleed and be very loudly incapacitated. He screamed. Mitchell's head snapped up, hand going for his weapon. Ava was already moving. She kicked him in the face. Her boot caught him just above the bridge of his nose. Bone crunched. Blood exploded. He fell backward off the tailgate. Hawkins spun, drew his Sig Sauer, fast, professional. But Ava was already on the ground, rolling. The bullet sparked off metal where her head had been a half second ago. She came up behind the truck's rear wheel. Cover, concealment, temporary safety. God damn it. Hawkins moved around the truck. Weapon up, searching. I'm going to kill you, slow princess. Kane writhed on the ground, hands pressed to his throat. Not dying, but out of the fight. Mitchell staggered upright, blood sheeting down his face. He found his weapon, raised it, fired blind. The bullet hit the freight container behind Ava, ricocheted into darkness. Wild shot. Panic shot. She stayed low, stayed calm, counted shooters. Two still combat effective. Both armed, both trained, both very angry. She had a knife. Bad math. McCarthy watched through his scope, watched Ava make her move, watched it go loud and violent. His finger rested on the trigger, calculating. Wind speed negligible, range 800 meters. Target identification, 3 men, 1 woman. Target priority, anyone pointing a gun at Ava Sullivan. Mitchell lined up another shot, trying to track Ava's position. McCarthy centered the reticle on his chest. Light them up, Ghost, he whispered. Give me a reason. Ava gave him a reason. She broke from cover, sprinting, head down, serpentine pattern, making herself a difficult target. Hawkins tracked her, fired, missed, fired again, closer. She dove behind another freight car. Mitchell followed, weapon raised, moving with tactical precision. Sector scanning, professional. Too professional for his own good. McCarthy squeezed the trigger. The Remington barked. Suppressor muted but didn't silence. The bullet traveled 800 meters in just over a second, hit Mitchell in the right shoulder, spun him sideways. He went down hard. The Sig Sauer clattered away into darkness. Hawkins froze. Sniper! She's got a goddamn sniper! He ran for the truck, diving inside. The engine roared to life, tires screaming, fleeing into the night. Ava stepped out from cover, looked toward the warehouse, toward the position where 800 meters ago John McCarthy had just saved her life. She raised her radio. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We've got problems. What problems? Hawkins is running home to Daddy, which means we've got maybe 6 hours before Vice Admiral Kellerman deploys assets we can't fight. We need to move. Now. Ava looked at the 2 men on the ground. Kane was still conscious, still bleeding, still very much alive. Mitchell clutched his shattered shoulder. Moaning, she walked over to Kane, knelt down, looked into his eyes. Who killed my father? Kane's lips moved, trying to speak. Only blood came out. Not you, Ava said. You were too young, just a petty officer in 2004. So who pulled the trigger? Not, Kane coughed. Blood bubbled. Not us, contractor. Guy named Volkov. We're dead, supposedly. Car accident, Ukraine, 2006. Supposedly wound. Kellerman cleans up, makes problems, disappear. Is Volkov alive? Kane's eyes rolled back, consciousness fading, blood loss claiming him. Ava pressed harder on his throat wound, not helping, just maintaining pressure, keeping him awake. Is Volkov alive? Yes, whisper, barely audible. Works for Kellerman now, personal security, bodyguard. Where can I find him? But Kane was gone. Not dead, just unconscious. His body shutting down non-essential systems to preserve what remained. Ava stood, walked to Mitchell. He was more conscious, more aware, more terrified. I won't ask twice, she said. Where does Kellerman meet his bodyguard? I don't know. I swear I don't know. We just follow orders. Hawkins tells us what to do. We do it, that's all. Not good enough. She raised the ceramic knife. Mitchell's eyes went wide. Wait, there's a memorial service. Tomorrow, Coronado. All the SEAL brass will be there. Kellerman gives a speech every year. His bodyguard will be there. Big guy, Russian accent, scar on his left cheek. That's all I know. I swear that's all I know. Ava studied him, looking for the lie, looking for the tell. But all she saw was fear and pain and the desperate honesty of a man who knew he was a heartbeat away from dying. If you're lying, she said quietly, I'll find you. I'll find everyone you love, and I'll make sure they understand what you helped do to my father. I'm not lying, please. Just let me go. Ava stood, walked away. Behind her, Mitchell sobbed. Relief, pain, trauma. She didn't care. Her radio crackled. Ghost, you copy a copy. We need to move. Police will respond to the shots. We've got maybe 10 minutes. Roger, where's the rally point? Drainage culvert, northwest of your position. Orange paint. Ava ran. Her legs were steadier now, blood flow restored, muscles remembering how to work. She found the culvert easily, a concrete tunnel carved into the hillside. Orange spray paint marked the entrance. She slipped inside. Darkness swallowed her. 30 seconds later, headlights swept the rail yard. Police cruisers. 3 of them. Officers dismounting. Flashlights probing. Voices calling out. Discovering Kane and Mitchell. Calling for ambulances. But Ava Sullivan was already gone. Ghost. She waited in the culvert for 20 minutes. Then footsteps. Heavy, uneven. The distinctive cadence of someone walking with a prosthetic. Ghost. Here, light from a flashlight. Then McCarthy emerged from darkness. 64 years old. Face like weathered granite, eyes sharp as broken glass. He carried a pack in one hand, the Remington in the other. He looked at Ava, really looked, taking inventory, bloody wrists, torn clothes, ceramic knife still in her hand, but standing, live, functional. You did good, he said. I didn't finish it. No, but you started it. That's something. He set the pack down. We need to get out of San Diego. Kellerman knows you're alive and dangerous. He'll deploy everything he's got. What's everything? More than we can handle alone. McCarthy pulled out his phone, dialed. Someone answered on the first ring. Ray, it's John. I need you in San Diego, yesterday. Pause. Yeah, she's alive, but we've kicked the hornet's nest. Bring your kit and call Viper. Tell him to bring the Barrett. Another pause. Because we might need to reach out and touch someone at 1,000 meters. Just get here. He hung up. Ava raised an eyebrow. Ray Viper. Raymond Foster. Doc. Best combat medic I ever worked with. And Cole Reeves. Best shooter. McCarthy smiled without warmth. Your father saved both their lives. They owe him, which means they owe you. How long until they arrive? Doc can be here by dawn. He lives in Phoenix. Viper's in Texas. He'll need a day. We don't have a day. Then we make a day. McCarthy shouldered his pack. Come on. I've got a safe house in the mountains. We hole up. We plan. We figure out how to kill a vice admiral without spending the rest of our lives in Leavenworth. They walked through darkness, through drainage tunnels and service roads, through parts of San Diego that decent people avoided. McCarthy moved with the confidence of someone who'd navigated worse terrain in worse circumstances. Ava followed, trusting, learning. An hour later, they reached a cabin hidden in the hills east of the city, small, isolated, solar panels on the roof, rain catchment system, the kind of place someone built when they wanted to disappear. Inside the cabin was Spartan, cot, table, chairs, gun safe bolted to the wall. McCarthy opened the safe, revealed an armory, rifles, pistols, ammunition, body armor, enough hardware to fight a small war. You've been preparing for this, Ava said. Been preparing for 20 years, ever since your father died and the official story didn't add up. McCarthy pulled out a laptop, booted it up. I've been collecting files, building a case, waiting for someone to be brave enough or stupid enough to take a run at Kellerman. Why didn't you do it yourself? Because I'm old and angry and not thinking clearly anymore. He looked at her. But you've got what your father had. Clear eyes, sharp mind, the ability to see through the bullshit. That's what we need. The laptop finished booting. McCarthy pulled up files. Years of research, personnel records, mission reports, financial documents, a digital spiderweb connecting names and dates and deaths. At the center of the web, Vice Admiral Robert Kellerman. Kellerman's been selling secrets since 1985, McCarthy said. Started with the Soviets during the Cold War, East Germany. That's where I met him. He was our commanding officer, led us into an ambush. 4 SEALs died, 4 good men. Your father and I barely made it out. You knew he was dirty even then. Suspected. Couldn't prove. Kellerman was careful, always had plausible deniability, always had someone else to blame. McCarthy scrolled through files. After the Cold War ended, he didn't stop. Just changed customers, Russians, Chinese, Iranians, whoever paid. He's been responsible for compromised operations across 4 decades. 89 confirmed sealed deaths. Probably more that we can't connect. Ava stared at the screen. 89 names. 89 men who'd trusted their leadership. Who'd believed the intelligence they received was accurate. Who'd walked into ambushes thinking they were on righteous missions. All dead because one man valued money over honor. Why hasn't anyone stopped him? Because he's protected. High rank, political connections, family money. The kind of protection that makes investigations disappear, makes witnesses recant, makes evidence vanish. McCarthy closed the laptop. Your father was building a case, had evidence, recordings, documents. But before he could bring it forward, someone put a bullet in his back. Volkov. Yeah, Yuri Volkov, former Spetsnaz, Russian Special Forces. Kellerman's been using him as a cleaner since the 90s. Makes problems disappear. Your father was a problem. Is he still alive? McCarthy nodded. Working as Kellerman's personal bodyguard now. Hiding in plain sight. If we want to take down Kellerman, we go through Volkov first. Ava felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, not exactly. More like recognition. This was the path her father had walked. The path that ended with him dead in Fallujah. And now she was walking it too. There's a memorial service tomorrow, she said. Coronado. Kellerman will be there. So will Volkov. I know. I've been monitoring Kellerman's schedule for years. He gives the same speech every year. Honors the fallen, plays the part of grieving commander. McCarthy's expression hardened. Stands up there and talks about sacrifice while knowing he's responsible for half the names on that wall. Can we get to him there? In front of 200 witnesses, no. But after, McCarthy pulled up a building schematic on his laptop. Kellerman has a standing meeting after the memorial. Private warehouse in the industrial district. That's where he meets with Volkov, discusses operations, plans the next year's activities. It's the one time annually when his guard is down, when he thinks he's safe. You've been watching him. For 20 years, Ghost, waiting for an opening, waiting for a chance. McCarthy looked at her. Question is, are you ready? Because once we start this, there's no stopping. No mercy, no second chances. We burn Kellerman's world to ash, or we die trying. Those are the only options. Ava thought about her father, about 20 years of lies and loneliness, about growing up without the one person who understood her, about the men who'd tied her to railroad tracks and left her to die, about 89 other families who'd lost fathers and sons and brothers to one man's greed. I'm ready, she said. McCarthy studied her face, looking for doubt, looking for weakness. Finding neither. Then we start training. Dawn. Doc arrives at 0600. Viper gets here tomorrow night. That gives us 36 hours to turn you into a shooter good enough to make the shot that matters. What shot? McCarthy pulled a rifle from the gun safe. Long, heavy, purposeful. A Barrett M82, 50 caliber, anti-material rifle. The kind of weapon designed to destroy vehicles at extreme range. Or people. Kellerman's warehouse meeting happens on the top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, no curtains. He likes to watch the city while he plans his next betrayal. McCarthy set the Barrett on the table. There's a building 920 meters away. Perfect line of sight. Perfect shot. 920 meters. Give or take. Think you can make it. Ava looked at the rifle, at the impossible weight of it, at the scope that cost more than her car. At the weapon designed for precision violence at distances that turned humans into mathematical abstractions. I've never shot past 500 meters. Then you've got 36 hours to learn. McCarthy smiled, grim, certain. Your father made that shot once. Mosul, 2005, 960 meters, high wind, moving target, one shot, one kill, saved 12 SEALs. He paused. Genes don't lie, Ghost. You've got his blood, his training, his instinct. Question is, do you have his will? Ava picked up the Barrett. The weight was immense, brutal, unforgiving. This wasn't a tool for hunting deer or punching paper targets. This was a weapon for ending lives from distances so extreme the target never knew they were in danger, never heard the shot that killed them. She thought about Brett Hawkins, about Vice Admiral Kellerman, about Yuri Volkov, who put a bullet in her father's back 20 years ago and then disappeared into legend. About 89 ghosts crying out for justice that would never come through official channels. Sometimes justice required unofficial methods. Sometimes justice required a rifle and a clearer line of sight and the will to pull the trigger. I have his will, Ava said quietly. Now teach me his skills. McCarthy nodded. Get some sleep. Training starts at dawn. And Ghost. Yes, your father would be proud. Whatever happens next, whatever you become, he'd be proud. Ava didn't trust herself to speak. She just nodded, carried the Barrett to the corner, laid down on the cot, closed her eyes. But sleep wouldn't come, because in 36 hours she'd either be a hero or a murderer. The line between the two was often just a matter of perspective. And Ava Sullivan no longer cared about perspective. She cared about justice, even if justice looked a lot like revenge. Dawn came cold and precise. Ava woke to the sound of a vehicle approaching. Her hand found the Glock before her eyes opened. Muscle memory, her father's training. She rolled off the cop, moved to the window, stayed low, stayed quiet. A silver Toyota Tacoma pulled up to the cabin. Dented, dirty, the kind of truck that didn't attract attention. The driver's door opened. A man climbed out. Early 60s, lean, gray hair cut military short. He carried a medical bag in one hand, a rifle case in the other. McCarthy emerged from the back room. Stand down, Ghost. That's Doc. Raymond Foster looked exactly like a man who'd spent 40 years putting broken bodies back together. Steady hands, calm eyes. The kind of presence that made wounded men believe they'd serve even when the math said otherwise. He walked into the cabin, set his bags down, looked at Ava. You're smaller than I expected. I get that a lot. Your father was small too, 5'9", maybe 160 soaking wet. Didn't stop him from being the toughest son of a bitch I ever met. Doc extended his hand. Ray Foster, your dad saved my life in Mogadishu, 93. Carried me 6 blocks with a bullet in his shoulder and my blood all over his hands. I owe him, which means I owe you. Ava shook his hand. Thank you for coming. Thank me when we survive this. Doc looked at McCarthy. Where are we on timeline? Memorial service today at 1400. Kellerman's warehouse meeting at 2200. That gives us 8 hours to train and 32 hours to prepare. And Viper. Inbound. ETA tomorrow at 1800. Doc nodded, pulled medical supplies from his bag. First things first. Ghost, let me see those wrists. Ava held out her hands. The rope burns had scabbed over, but the wounds were angry. Red, possibly infected. Doc examined them with practiced efficiency, cleaned them, applied antibiotic ointment, wrapped them in fresh gauze. You're lucky, he said. Another few hours and you'd be looking at serious infection. Paracord doesn't play nice with open wounds. I didn't have time to worry about infection. No, I suppose you didn't. Doc finished bandaging, packed his supplies. What else, any other injuries I should know about? Just bruises. Bruises kill if they're in the wrong place. Strip, let me check. Ava hesitated. Doc's expression didn't change. Professional, clinical. The look of a man who'd seen 1,000 bodies in 1,000 states of damage and stopped being affected decades ago. She stripped to her underwear. Doc examined her with methodical thoroughness, checking for internal bleeding, organ damage, skeletal injuries that might compromise her ability to function. You're good, he said finally. Physically, at least. Mentally is a different question. I'm fine. You killed a man last night. I wounded 2 men. McCarthy killed 1. Don't dance around it. You cut Kane's throat. You put a boot through Mitchell's face. You looked at a Brett Hawkins in the eye and made him run. That changes a person. First time always does. Ava pulled her clothes back on. My father killed people. You killed people. McCarthy killed people. How is this different? It's not different. That's the problem. Doc sat down, gestured for Ava to do the same. Your father and I talked a lot. Downtime between ops. Long nights in bad places. He worried about you. worried that you'd inherit his demons along with his skills. What demons? The kind that come from doing necessary evil, the kind that wake you up at 3 a.m. wondering if the people you killed had families, had dreams, had a right to keep breathing. Doc leaned forward. Your father carried 83 confirmed kills. I was there for 42 of them. Every single one changed him a little, made him a little harder, a little colder. By the end, there wasn't much soft left in David Sullivan, just mission and duty and the grinding weight of all those ghosts. He never told me that because he didn't want you to know, didn't want you to follow him into that darkness. Doc paused. But here you are anyway, walking the same path, about to add your own ghost to the collection. Ava met his eyes. Did my father regret it, the killing? No, he understood it was necessary, but understanding and accepting are different things. He understood that pulling a trigger could save 10 lives, but he never accepted that it made him feel nothing. That's the trap ghost, not the killing itself. The numbness that comes after, the day when shooting someone becomes just another task, like filing paperwork, like washing dishes. That's when you've lost something important, something you don't get back. I'm not numb, not yet, but give it time. Give it 20 kills, 50, 100. See if you still feel something. See if the nightmares still come. Doc stood. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. Because tonight you're going to look through a scope at a man 920 meters away, and you're going to pull a trigger, and that man is going to die without knowing what hit him. And tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll either be destroyed by what you did or you'll be fine with it. Both options are terrifying. Silence filled the cabin. Outside, the sun climbed higher. Normal day, normal world. People were drinking coffee and checking email and complaining about traffic, living lives unburdened by the weight of premeditated killing. Ava envied them and pitied them because they'd never understand what it meant to stand on this edge, to look into the abyss and know you were about to jump, to accept that some things mattered more than moral purity, that sometimes the only way to stop a monster was to become one yourself. I'll be fine, she said quietly. Doc studied her face, then nodded. Yeah, I think you will. God help us all. McCarthy returned carrying the Barrett M82. He set it on the table with a heavy thunk. The weapon was a monster, 4 feet long, 30 pounds of steel and polymer in brutal purpose. Time to work, he said. They drove 2 hours into the desert, found a box canyon McCarthy had used for training before. Empty, isolated. The kind of place where gunfire didn't attract attention because there was nobody to hear it. McCarthy set up targets at 500 meters, 600, 700, 800, 900. Each target was a steel plate, 12 inches in diameter, the size of a human head, the size of a kill shot. Fundamentals first, McCarthy said. He laid the Barrett on a shooting mat, settled behind it. Position. The rifle weighs 30 pounds. You can't muscle it. You have to become part of it. Shoulder in the pocket, cheek weld solid, left hand supporting the forend, right hand on the grip, body aligned behind the scope. Everything connected. Everything supporting everything else. He demonstrated. His body seemed to meld with the weapon. Breathing slowed, muscles relaxed. The Barrett became an extension of his will. Now Ava took position. The rifle felt like trying to control a wild animal, too big, too heavy, too much weapon for someone her size. Relax, McCarthy said. Don't fight it. The Barrett wants to do the work. Your job is to let it. Settle, breathe, find your natural point of aim. She adjusted, shifted, found a position that felt less awkward. The scope brought the 500-meter target into sharp focus. 12 inches of steel, impossibly small at this distance. A headshot at 500 meters required precision measured in fractions of an inch. One mistake, and the bullet sailed wide. Ballistics, McCarthy said. The 50 BMG round travels at 2,800 feet per second. At 500 meters, the bullet drops approximately 50 inches. You have to compensate. The scope has an elevation turret. Each click is 1/4 MOA. 4 clicks equals 1 inch of adjustment at 100 meters. At 500 meters, you need roughly 50 clicks up, but that's assuming sea level. Standard temperature. No wind. Reality is messier. He walked her through the calculations: temperature effects, humidity, barometric pressure, the Coriolis effect at extreme distances, wind drift, spin drift, 1,000 variables that turn shooting from art into applied physics. Your father understood this instinctively, McCarthy said. He could look at conditions and just know what the adjustment should be. Took me years to develop that intuition. You've got 30 hours. Then we'd better get started. They shot until Ava's shoulder was bruised and bleeding. The Barrett's recoil was savage. 50 BMG carried enormous energy. Every shot felt like getting hit with a sledgehammer. By the 50th round, she was gritting her teeth through the pain. Break, Doc said. He'd been watching, timing her shots, analyzing her technique. You're flinching, anticipating the recoil. That's throwing your shots off. It hurts. Yeah, it does, but pain is just information. Your body telling you something's happening. You don't have to react to it. He handed her water. Your father taught me something in Somalia. Pain has volume. You can turn it down. Not off, but down, low enough that it doesn't interfere with the job. Halpoa, focus, not on the pain, on the target, on the mission. The recoil becomes background noise. Like traffic, like rain, present but not important. They resumed shooting. Ava tried to implement Doc's advice, focused on the target, on the crosshairs, on the moment between heartbeats when her body was still and the rifle was steady and the universe contracted to a single point of potential. The shots improved. 500 meters became manageable, 600, 700. At 800 meters, she was hitting the plate 4 times out of 5. But 920 meters was different. At that range, the target was barely visible, even through the scope. A tiny speck of steel. The bullet traveled for nearly 2 seconds. Plenty of time for wind to push it off course, for gravity to drag it down, for any of 1,000 variables to turn a perfect shot into a miss. McCarthy set up a target at 920 meters, painted it orange for visibility, placed it in the exact position where Vice Admiral Kellerman would be standing tonight, behind floor-to-ceiling windows, framed perfectly, oblivious to the scope watching from across the city. This is the shot, McCarthy said. Everything else was practice. This is what matters. Ava settled behind the Barrett, found her position, checked the scope. The target swam in her vision. Tiny, distant, impossible. Conditions, McCarthy said. Temperature is 68 degrees, humidity 60%. Wind is 12 miles per hour from the southwest. That's a 3/4 value wind. Maybe 10 miles per hour effective. At this range, that's approximately 28 inches of drift. Your elevation is good. You need to come right 3 MOA. 12 clicks. Ava made the adjustment, settled, breathed. Her heart rate slowed. The target steadied. She could see it clearly now. Orange plate against brown canyon wall. Center mass, where a man's chest would be, where his heart pumped blood to keep him alive. Not for long. She pressed the trigger. The Barrett roared. Recoil hammered her shoulder. The scope jumped. By the time she reacquired the target, the bullet had already arrived. Miss. Low and left. 6 inches off center. You know, Mom, McCarthy said. She adjusted, fired, miss, high and right. Again. Miss, miss, miss. 10 shots, 10 misses. Frustration built in Ava's chest. This was supposed to be genetic. Supposed to be her inheritance. Her father could make this shot. Why couldn't she break, Doc said. You're in your head, overthinking. I can't hit it. Not yet, but you will. How do you know? Because your father couldn't hit it either. First time, second time, 50th time. It took him 6 months of practice before he made his first 900-meter shot. You've been shooting for 6 hours. Doc knelt beside her. This isn't about Gene's ghost. It's about repetition, about building muscle memory so deep that thinking becomes irrelevant. Your body knows what to do. You just have to get your mind out of the way. Stop trying to make the shot. Just take it. Don't think about Kellerman. Don't think about your father. Don't think about justice or revenge or any of that. Just see the target. See the crosshairs. Let them come together. Then press. Ava tried again. This time she didn't calculate, Didn't adjust for wind or temperature or any of the 100 variables McCarthy had taught her. She just looked at the target, felt the wind on her face, felt the rifle settle into her shoulder, felt her heartbeat slow to something deep and steady. The crosshairs drifted across the target. She didn't force them to center, just let them wander, breathing, waiting, and then for a fraction of a second, everything aligned. Wind, position, heartbeat, scope, target. She pressed the trigger. The Barrett roared. 2 seconds later, the distant clang of steel. Hit. Dead center. McCarthy grinned. There it is. That's your father's daughter. They shot until sunset. By the end, Ava was hitting the 920-meter target 3 times out of 5. Not perfect, but good enough. In combat, good enough was all you got. They drove back to the cabin in silence. Ava's shoulder was raw meat, her hands cramped from gripping the rifle. Her eyes burned from hours behind the scope. But she felt something else too. Confidence. The kind that came from pushing past your limits and discovering new ones. She could make the shot. The question was whether she could live with what came after. The cabin was dark when they arrived. McCarthy flipped on lights, revealed a third figure sitting at the table. Late 50s, weathered face, eyes like chips of gray ice. He held a cup of coffee like it might escape. About time, the man said. I've been here 3 hours. You're early, McCarthy said. Wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. Plans changed, drove straight through from Texas. He looked at Ava. You're the ghost. Ava Sullivan. Cole Reeves, people call me Viper. He stood, extended a hand. His grip was dry, powerful. The hand of someone who'd spent a lifetime controlling precision instruments. Your father was a good man, best spotter I ever worked with. Iraq, 2006. He called wind corrections for my longest shot, 1,247 meters. Taliban commander, 1 round, center mass. Thank you for coming. Didn't come for you. Came for your father. Man saved my life twice. Only fair I returned the favor to his daughter. Viper sat back down. McCarthy filled me in. We're taking a run at Kellerman, long-range shot, urban environment, soft target through glass. Can it be done? Everything can be done. Question is whether it should be done. You understand what you're asking? You're not just killing a man, you're killing a vice admiral. That brings heat, federal heat, the kind that doesn't stop until someone's in prison or dead. I understand. Do you? Because I've made a lot of shots in a lot of places. Some of them I'm proud of. Most I'm not, but every single one came with consequences, ripples. You kill Kellerman, those ripples spread. They touch everyone connected to this operation. Me, Doc, McCarthy, you. We all become targets. We all become problems that need solving. Ava met his eyes. My father spent years investigating into Kellerman, building a case. He died before he could bring it forward. 89 other SEALs died because Kellerman sold secrets. How many more die if we do nothing? Viper considered, then nodded. Fair point. I am in. But we do this smart. We plan every detail. We account for every variable. And we have an exit strategy. Because killing is easy, surviving afterward is hard. They spent the night planning. McCarthy had building schematics for the warehouse, security camera positions, guard rotations, exit routes. 20 years of surveillance distilled into actionable intelligence. Kellerman meets on the top floor, McCarthy said. Southeast corner, floor-to-ceiling windows. No curtains. He likes the view, likes feeling untouchable. Arrogant, Viper said. Good. Arrogance makes people sloppy. The meeting starts at 2200, runs approximately 30 minutes. Kellerman, his son Brett, and Yuri Volkov. That's 3 targets. Priority bun. Kellerman first. He's the head. Cut it off and the body dies. Volkov second if possible. He's dangerous. Combat trained. If he realizes what's happening, he'll respond fast. Brett's a coward. He'll run. Shooting position. McCarthy pulled up a map. Building 5 blocks north. Abandoned office complex. 920 meters line of sight. Perfect angle. Minimal wind interference because the buildings channel it. Egress, roof access to adjacent building. Fire escape down to street level. Vehicle stage 2 blocks away. We're in the air within 90 seconds of the shot. Viper studied the plan. Professional. Thorough. But his expression remained troubled. There's a problem. What problem? The glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows means thick glass. Probably laminated. When the 50 cal round hits, it'll deflect. Maybe just a few inches. But at 900 meters, a few inches is the difference between a kill shot and a wounded target. Wounded targets call for help. Help brings police. SWAT. Federal response. Silence. McCarthy's jaw tightened. So what do? We need the first shot to penetrate clean. That means either finding a window that'll be open or accepting that the second shot is the kill shot. First shot breaks the glass. Second shot takes the target. That gives Volkov time to react. Yeah, it does. So we need a second shooter. Someone to put rounds on Volkov while Ghost takes Kellerman. Viper looked at McCarthy. That's you. You're backup. You put a round through Volkov the second the glass breaks. Don't wait for Ghost's second shot. Just take him. What about Brett? Let him run. He's nobody without his father. He'll be scooped up by federal investigators within 24 hours. The evidence you've collected will make sure of that. Doc spoke up. What about exfil? If we're running 2 shooters, that's 2 positions to evacuate. Doubles our exposure. We set up adjacent, same building, different windows. Ghost takes southeast corner office. I take southwest, 30 feet apart. Same egress route, we move together. Viper looked at Ava. You comfortable with that? Yes. Don't answer so fast, think about it. When you pull that trigger, everything changes. You become a killer, officially, legally, morally. There's no walking that back, no pretending it didn't happen. The rest of your life starts with that shot. Make sure it's a life you can live with. Ava thought about her father, about the last time she saw him alive. She was 6 years old. He was deploying to Iraq. He'd knelt down, looked her in the eyes, said something she didn't understand then, but understood now. Sometimes, Ghost, you have to do a wrong thing for the right reason. The world isn't clean, isn't simple. Sometimes good people have to make hard choices and live with them afterward. That's what honor means. Not avoiding hard choices, but making them anyway and bearing the weight. She'd asked him what weight he was bearing. He just smiled, kissed her forehead, walked away. She never saw him again. Now she understood the weight, understood why his eyes were sad even when he smiled, why he drank whiskey alone on the back porch, why he'd wake up at 3 a.m. and just sit in the dark. He'd been carrying 83 ghosts. Soon she'd have her own. I can live with it, Ava said. Viper nodded. Then we move tomorrow. Day of reconnaissance, confirm sidewinds, test equipment, run through contingencies. The memorial service is at 1400. Kellerman's meeting is at 2200. That gives us 8 hours to prepare after he makes a speech. What about the speech? We attend, all of us, blend in with the crowd, let Kellerman see us, let him think we're just more mourners paying respects. Then when he heads to his meeting, he won't be expecting shadows. Doc frowned. That's risky. If he recognizes any of us, he won't. I've never met Kellerman. Neither has Viper. And it's been 20 years since he saw you or McCarthy. People change. Add some gray hair and 20 pounds, and we're just old veterans in a sea of old veterans. What about me? Ava asked. You stay hidden. Kellerman knows your face, knows you're a threat, but he doesn't know about us. That's our advantage. We keep it. The plan solidified. Details refined. By midnight, they had contingencies for the contingencies. By 0200, they'd run through the entire operation 6 times. Practice movements, timed responses, drilled until it became muscle memory. At 0300, Doc called sleep. You can't shoot tired, he said. Last thing we need is fatigue making someone sloppy. They slept in shifts. Ava took first watch, sat by the window with the Glock in her lap, watching the darkness, thinking about tomorrow. About the moment when she'd look through a scope and see a man who didn't know he had seconds left to live. Would she hesitate? Would her father's training hold? Would the ghost of David Sullivan guide her hand or haunt it? She didn't know, And that uncertainty was the most terrifying thing of all. Dawn came faster than expected. They loaded vehicles, checked equipment, drove into San Diego like any other group of veterans heading to a memorial service. McCarthy wore a dark suit. Doc had found his old dress blues. Viper looked uncomfortable in civilian clothes but managed. They parked 3 blocks from the Naval Amphibious Base, joined the crowd filtering through security. Hundreds of people, active duty, retired, families. Everyone touched by the SEAL community. Everyone carrying their own ghosts. The memorial was held outdoors. A wall listed every SEAL who'd died in service. 800 names. 800 men who'd answered the call. Ava found her father's name. David Michael Sullivan. Senior Chief Petty Officer. Killed in action. Fallujah. 2004. She traced the letters with her finger. Cold stone. Permanent. Final. "I'm going to finish it, Dad," she whispered. "I'm going to finish what you started." The crowd quieted. A podium had been erected. Flags flanked it. American, Navy, SEAL Trident. Vice Admiral Robert Kellerman walked to the podium. 80 years old, silver hair, chest full of ribbons and medals. The picture of distinguished service. The picture of honor. But Ava knew the truth. Knew those medals were bought with blood. Other people's blood. Sold for money and power, and the arrogance of a man who thought himself above consequence. Kellerman began to speak. "We gather today to remember those who gave everything, who stood the watch, who ran toward danger when others fled. These names behind me represent the finest warriors this nation has ever produced." His voice was strong, authoritative, the voice of command, the voice that sent men into battle, the voice that betrayed them. I knew many of these men personally, served with them, bled with them, and I carry their memory every day. The weight of leadership is knowing that sometimes good men die. Sometimes the mission costs more than we want to pay, but we pay it anyway, because the alternative is unthinkable. Ava's hands clenched. McCarthy put a hand on her shoulder. Steadying, warning. "Not yet, not here." Kellerman continued. "One name in particular stands out to me. Senior Chief David Sullivan. I had the honor of serving alongside David in his early career. He was everything a SEAL should be. Brave, dedicated, loyal. His death in Fallujah was a tragedy. A loss that still echoes 20 years later. Lies. All lies. Wrapped into the flag, wrapped in honor, wrapped in the deaths of better men. David left behind a daughter, Ava, who I understand followed her father into service, working in intelligence now. Carrying on his legacy, David, wherever you are, know that your daughter makes you proud, makes all of us proud." The crowd applauded. Ava wanted to scream, wanted to rush the podium, wanted to tell everyone the truth, that this man was a traitor, a murderer, a cancer wearing a uniform. But she stayed quiet, because tonight Kellerman would learn what David Sullivan's daughter had really inherited. Not pride, not honor, justice. The memorial ended. The crowd dispersed. Kellerman worked the attendees, shaking hands, offering condolences, playing the role of grieving commander. He was good at it. 20 years of practice, 20 years of perfecting the lie. At 1600 hours he left, drove away in a black sedan, surrounded by security, heading back to his office to prepare for his meeting, to discuss next year's operations with the man who'd killed Ava's father. 8 hours, McCarthy said quietly. Everyone knows their role. Nods all around. Then let's move. They drove to the abandoned office building, entered through a service entrance, climbed 12 floors. The building had been empty for years. Windows broken, graffiti on the walls, the kind of place the city had forgotten. Perfect. McCarthy and Viper set up in adjacent offices. Both had clear sight lines to the warehouse. 920 meters. Textbook range. The Barrett rifles came out. Bipods deployed, ammunition loaded. 50 BMG rounds, 5 per magazine. More than enough. Doc set up security, monitored approaches, watched for police patrols or curious civilians. The last thing they needed was witnesses. Ava settled behind her Barrett. The scope brought the warehouse into crystal focus. She could see into Kellerman's office. Empty now, waiting. In 4 hours it would be filled. 3 men, 3 targets, 3 opportunities to finish what her father started. "Comms check," McCarthy said. Everyone responded. Radios working, channels clear. They were as ready as they'd ever be. Now came the hardest part. Waiting. The sun set, the city lit up. A million lives unfolding below. People eating dinner, watching television, making love, fighting, laughing, crying, living normal lives in a normal world. Ava envied them and pitied them because they'd never know what it meant to stand on this edge, to carry this weight, to understand that sometimes peace required violence, that sometimes justice came from the barrel of a gun. At 21:30, lights came on in Kellerman's office. "Movement," McCarthy said. 3 contacts, Kellerman, Volkov, and Brett. Ava watched through her scope. Kellerman looked relaxed, confident. He poured drinks, laughed at something Brett said. Yuri Volkov stood by the window. Big man, muscled, char on his left cheek. The face of violence. The face of the man who killed her father. "Range check," Viper said. 922 meters, McCarthy responded. 3 miles per hour, southeast, negligible. Temperature, 65 degrees. Humidity, 58%. Glass laminated, 1/4 inch thick. First shot breaks it, second shot kills. Confirm firing order. Ghost takes first shot, breaks glass, takes Kellerman with second shot. I engage Volkov simultaneously. Viper provides overwatch and backup. Acknowledged. Ghost, you have control. Ava settled deeper behind the Barrett. Her breathing slowed. Heart rate dropped. The scope showed Kellerman in perfect profile, standing behind his desk, gesturing, talking, living his last moments without knowing they were his last. She thought about her father, about 6-year-old Ava watching him walk away, about 20 years of growing up with questions nobody would answer, about the day she'd hacked into the medical database and learned the truth, about Kane bleeding on the ground whispering Volkov's name, about Brett Hawkins tying her to railroad tracks and walking away, about 89 names on a wall, 89 families who deserved answers, deserved justice, deserved to know their loved ones didn't die in vain, but through betrayal. Her finger rested on the trigger. "Target acquired," she whispered. "Confirmed," McCarthy said. "You have the shot. Taking shot in 3, 2, 1. She pressed the trigger. The Barrett roared. The scope jumped from recoil. By the time she reacquired the target, the bullet had already crossed 920 meters, had already hit the window. The glass spiderwebbed but didn't shatter. Kellerman spun, confused. Volkov moved toward the window. Ava chambered another round, settled, found Kellerman in the scope. He was moving now, heading for the door. Survival instinct. Too late. She pressed the trigger again. The second bullet punched through the weakened glass, traveled the final meters, found its target. Vice Admiral Robert Kellerman dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Simultaneously, McCarthy's shot broke through an adjacent window, caught Volkov in the chest. The big Russian staggered, fell, tried to rise. McCarthy shot him again, and again, making sure. Brett Hawkins ran, exactly as predicted, fled the office, fled his father's body, fled the consequences of 20 years of complicity. Let him run. Federal investigators would find him within 24 hours. McCarthy's evidence would ensure conviction. Brett Hawkins would spend the rest of his life in a cell wondering if running had been worth it. "Targets down," Viper confirmed. "Exfil, now." They moved fast, grabbed gear, bolted for the stairs, 12 floors at full sprint. Ava's shoulder screamed from the Barrett's recoil. Her legs burned. She ignored it, ignored everything except movement. They hit the street. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police response. Someone had heard the shots, called it in. The clock was ticking. The vehicle was exactly where they'd left it. Dock behind the wheel, engine running. They piled in, doors slammed, tires squealed, 3 blocks, 5, 10. Putting distance between them and the scene, blending into traffic, just another vehicle in a city of millions. Nobody spoke. What was there to say? They just killed a vice admiral, crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, committed an act that made them criminals or patriots, depending on who was judging. Ava stared out the window, watching the city slide past, thinking about the moment she'd pulled the trigger, the moment when Kellerman's life ended and her new life began. She felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, no emotional response at all, just emptiness. And that emptiness was more terrifying than any nightmare. They drove through the night, took back roads into the mountains, reached McCarthy's cabin at 0300, exhausted, wired, running on adrenaline and the knowledge that tomorrow would bring consequences. Federal investigation, manhunt, the full weight of the government hunting for whoever killed a vice admiral. But tomorrow was tomorrow's problem. Tonight they'd won. Ava walked outside, stood under the stars, breathed mountain air. For the first time in 20 years, she felt something close to peace. Her father was avenged. 89 ghosts could rest. And Ava Sullivan had become exactly what her father trained her to be. A weapon. Precise, lethal, unforgiving. Whether that made her a monster or a hero remained to be seen. But standing there under infinite stars, feeling the weight of her father's rifle in her hands, she decided she didn't care. Some things were worth becoming a monster for. Justice was one of them. Behind her, the cabin door opened. McCarthy stepped out, stood beside her, said nothing for a long moment. Finally, your father would be proud. Would he? I just killed a man. You killed a traitor. There's a difference. Is there? McCarthy considered. Your father used to say that honor isn't about avoiding hard choices. It's about making them and bearing the weight. Tonight you made a hard choice. Killed a man who needed killing. Stopped a traitor who'd been operating for 40 years. Saved lives that would have been lost to his next betrayal. That's not murder, Ghost. That's duty. It doesn't feel like duty. What's it feel like? Ava thought about it. Tried to find words for the emptiness inside her chest. The absence where emotion should be. It feels like nothing, she said quietly. Like I should feel something but don't. Like I crossed a line and left part of myself on the other side. McCarthy nodded. Yeah, that's what it feels like. First time especially. But it gets easier. The emptiness fills in. You learn to carry it. Your father did. I did. You will too. What if I don't want to carry it? Then you walk away. Right now, tonight. Disappear into civilian life. Find a normal bio, normal friends, normal everything. Nobody would blame you. You did what you set out to do. Your father's killer is dead. Kellerman's network is exposed. You've earned peace. But I don't think you will, because you're your father's daughter, and he never walked away from a fight, never left a job unfinished. And this job isn't finished yet. What do you mean? McCarthy pulled out his phone. Showed her an email, sent 3 hours ago, before they had even taken the shot, from an encrypted address. Subject line proposal. Ava read Ms. Sullivan, we've been watching your investigation into Vice Admiral Kellerman. Impressive work. Dangerous work. The kind that gets people killed. You survived. That makes you useful. JSOC is building a new unit. Off-book operations. Targets that need handling outside normal channels. People with skills. People who can make hard choices. People like you. If you're interested, be at these coordinates in 72 hours. Come alone. Come prepared. And Petty Officer Sullivan. Welcome to the dark. Coordinates followed. Somewhere in Virginia, Ava looked at McCarthy. What is this? An opportunity. The kind your father would have jumped at. The kind that lets you keep fighting. Keep making a difference. Keep using the skills he gave you. You think I should go? I think you should decide what kind of person you want to be. Killer or warrior. There's a difference. Killers take life for personal reasons. Warriors take life for something bigger. Your father was a warrior. Tonight you became one too. Question is whether you want to stay one. Ava stared at the coordinates, at the invitation to step deeper into darkness, to make killing a profession instead of a one-time necessity. Part of her wanted to refuse, wanted to walk away, find peace, find normal. But another part, the part that had just shot a man at 920 meters, knew that normal was gone, that peace was an illusion, that once you crossed certain lines, there was no going back. Only forward, into darker waters. 72 hours, she said. Yeah, that's not much time. No, it's not. but it's enough to decide who you want to be. McCarthy went back inside, left Ava alone with stars and silence and the weight of her new reality. She thought about her father, about the man who'd taught her to shoot, to track, to kill, who'd prepared her for this exact moment without ever saying why. He'd known. Somehow he'd known that one day she'd stand exactly where he'd stood, facing exactly the same choice. Walk away or walk forward. Choose peace or choose war. He'd chosen war. And in choosing war, he'd saved hundreds of lives, maybe thousands, by hunting traitors, by exposing corruption, by being willing to do the hard things that let others sleep safe. He'd died for that choice, but he'd lived for it first, and living mattered more than dying. Ava pulled out her phone, entered the coordinates, memorized them, then deleted the email, erased the evidence, buried the proof that she'd been recruited into something that officially didn't exist. Demo. 72 hours, 3 days to decide if she was her father's daughter. But looking up at infinite stars, feeling the ghost of his hand on her shoulder, she already knew the answer. Some people were born for normal lives, for 9-to-5 twos and white picket fences and retirement plans. Some people were born for war. Ava Sullivan was her father's daughter, and her father had been born for war. She walked back into the cabin, found McCarthy cleaning the Barrett. The weapon gleamed under lamplight. Beautiful, deadly, purposeful. "I'm going," she said. McCarthy looked up, smiled. "I know. How? Because you're a Sullivan, and Sullivans don't quit. They finish the fight every time. What about you, Doc Viper? We've got our own fights, our own wars, but yours," he set the Barrett aside, "yours is just beginning, Ghost. Make your father proud. Make those 89 ghosts mean something. Be the weapon he trained you to be. And if I become a monster, then be a monster for the right reasons. There are worse things than being feared by people who deserve fear." Ava nodded, walked to the window, looked out at darkness and distant lights in a world that would never know what happened tonight. Never know that one woman with a rifle had ended a 40-year betrayal. Never know that David Sullivan's daughter had become exactly what he'd hoped. A warrior. Not perfect, not clean, not innocent, but willing to carry the weight, willing to make the hard choices, willing to be the weapon that kept others safe, even if it cost her soul, especially if it cost her soul, because some things were worth any price. Justice was one of them, honor was another, and family, blood-bought, hard-won, forged in fire was worth everything. Ava Sullivan stared into darkness and made her choice. Forward, always forward, into the black, where ghosts walked and warriors were born.